This is my rye starter. He's called Ryan and he's 26 years old. I keep Ryan so I can bake for people who are wheat-free, although not gluten-free. If you're not worried about any of those matters, then you can simply make your rye leaven using your wheat starter and feeding it with rye flour. Rye has a rich and distinctive flavour and it's a cornerstone of traditional baking in the north and east of Europe and in Russia, where the cooler and damper climate favours cultivation. Rye belongs to the same family of cereal grasses as wheat does, but in a quite different genus. Rye is not a gluten-free flour, but it does have a significantly lower level of gluten than wheat does, and this has several effects. Firstly, it makes the bread denser, because the gluten membranes aren't strong enough to support larger bubbles. And secondly, not having a lot of gluten means there's not a lot of point doing loads of kneading, so that makes it a super easy bread to make. This recipe involves 100% leaven to flour, which means there are masses of wild yeast and bacteria fermenting the dough, and that has huge benefits for your gut and your digestion. Now you've met Ryan, I'm going to put him back to sleep in the fridge, and then I'll show you how to make this bread. I always start by adding salt to the flour, and for this recipe I'm going to add some fennel seeds. Now I'm stirring the salt and fennel seed into the flour. The fennel is an anti-flatulent, a bit like caraway, both of which are used extensively in traditional northeastern European baking. Now I'm going to add my leaven. So this is my 100% rye leaven made from Ryan, and I'm going to weigh this into the flour here. Now I'm adding the water, and then I'm just going to stir it together with my spatula. No need for kneading. Because this leaven is nice and ripe, it's ready to work on the fresh flour in the bowl. If we'd used Ryan straight from the fridge, he would have been far too sleepy and lazy, and it would have taken absolutely hours to ferment the dough. This dough we're going to leave to rest and ferment for 2 hours before we mould it into a banneton. There. You can tell when you've finished when you can't see any more dry flour like that on the bottom. That's it, done. Pretty simple. To mould the dough into the proving basket, the first thing to do is put a nice generous layer of rye flour around the banneton, like that. Then make a landing pad for your dough. Again, a nice thick layer of rye flour. And then take all the dough out at once onto the deck. And you can see how it's got more moussey, not so clay-like as when we first mixed it. That's an indication that the fermentation has been working. Always a muddy pie business, mud pie rye. Now I'm going to add some walnuts to this dough. This can be done either at this stage or when you've mixed the dough. And then the trick for this, there's no technique, it's self-defense. Just keep a nice layer of rye flour between you and the dough, and between the dough and the banneton. As little handling as possible is really the key. Squidge it into the shape of your banneton and gently lower it in. Because you never get a dramatic rise with rye dough, what I like to do is put a little finger mark or two so that I know when it's halfway filled up, it's done the proving that it needs, to go in the oven. So my finger marks are filling up, and in fact the whole loaf has puffed up too. So all I have to do now is get it onto the tray and into the oven. There we go. We don't do any scoring or cutting. We let it randomly crack, not to deflate it. And off we go.